All right, hello, 7:29. It says we are live. So that looks good. That looks good. Let me check one more thing. Whoops. So now we got a couple people on, it looks like. Go there. And sound check, sound check. Come on. Play. Let me know. So now we got a couple people on, it looks like. All right. We have sound. That's always a good thing. So, okay, we're good there. And it's 7:30. Let's get rolling. Hey everybody, welcome to Wapiti Live Q&A for April 27th, 2022. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. And if you're joining on a computer, you can actually click the play button there in the Patreon page. That will actually open in another window, open in a YouTube window. And this video is unlisted. Nobody else can see it except for you guys that have access to the Patreon page. So if you do open it in that YouTube, you will see on the right-hand side there is a chat window where you can comment, ask questions, interact as we're going along. If you're watching on your phone or an iPad, a little bit different. So down underneath the video, you may actually have to scroll to the bottom of the description. You're going to see a little balloon icon. You can click on that balloon icon. That'll take you over into another window. You can put your comment in. You can put your question in. And then once you submit that, it actually brings you back to the video. So, all right, let's get rolling. We have a lot to cover tonight. So, all right. Item number one, how to handle the last couple of hours of light and encounters. So, evening hunts, that last little bit I always talk about is fast and furious. Especially early in the season, elk don't really move except for that last little bit of light. So it's really important that you position yourself within striking distance. And this is where knowing your hunt area, knowing the habits and patterns of the elk you're hunting really are an advantage because you know where to set up, you know where they're going to come out, you know where they're heading. If you're hunting a new place, you can still do this. It might take you a little bit to learn. So it might take you a couple of days to kind of learn, where they're at and where those good evening spots are. And yes, within the area that we do hunt, we do have morning only hunts. We do have evening only hunts because, sometimes things happen. So, may get a bull down in that last little bit of light, and it takes a while throughout the night to get him off the mountain, and you're just tired, you're wore out, so you don't get up that next morning and go and take care of some things in camp. Then you need that evening hunt place. So really the way that I handle the last couple of hours of light is I really want to be in position for striking distance. And what that means is I am really listening, and I want to be in a position so that when I do hear a bugle or I do hear elk, I don't have that far to go. And I also want the ability that I can cover ground quickly, because that's usually what happens is you hear that bugle and you've got to beat feed it. You got to cover a lot of ground to get close enough in order to make a play. Now, the other approach you can take on this is if you know their travel corridors, be in position so that they're coming towards you. This one's more of a gamble because of thermals. Because remember, they always move with thermals in their nose. So this one's a little bit trickier, but depending on, your hunt area, where you're at, you can take that approach as well. So that's two different ways that I handle that last little bit of light. Be in position, so close for striking distance, or stage myself so that I am within their travel corridor. All right, second part. What is, let me do this. I'm going to pull it up on the phone because it's a little easier to read. What is your decision-making process? So, decision-making process on this, last couple hours of light is when I do hear a response, it's a couple of things. One, is it close enough that I can get to and engage before it gets too dark? If not, and nothing close to me, if I have nothing in the striking distance, I'm going to pay attention. I'm going to pay attention to where that bull is going, how often he's bugling, and gather kind of all that information. Does he have a hot cow? Is he the only bull with him? Is he only a bull? Does he have cows with him? Are there other bulls with him? And I'm going to gather that information because then I'm going to use that for the next day. So, but also too, I'm paying attention to where he came out and the direction that he's heading, because then the next day, if I don't get him in the morning and it turns into another evening hunt, I'm going to basically kind of position myself better. This is kind of, especially if you're in a new area and, you're learning their habits and where they're coming out. Great way to gather that information. Because the thought process on this is I don't want to, especially if I know there's not enough light, I don't want to push towards and run the risk of bumping in the dark. Keep them in that natural pattern to position myself better the next day and have a much better opportunity with more light opportunity. So the more light opportunity that you can give yourself in that evening time, the better off you're going to be. Because if need be, if you have to really work that bull, you've given yourself the time that you can do that. So, excuse me. So, all right. Next question well, it's not really a question. Next. Okay. So, yeah, next one. When is the right time to go back into an area after an encounter? Immediately or wait? A lot of variables in that. It depends what happened during the encounter. If it was an encounter that we were calling back and forth and they never got any human scent or they never saw me, they never boogered out of there, they stayed in their natural pattern, I'm more apt to go in sooner. Now, if we did have an encounter and they smell me or saw me, I'm going to give it 3 days before I go back in there. It's kind of funny. You hear a lot of people talking about elk being call shy or, you can't call to them. And a lot of people think that, and you'll see it too with people that are out bugling before the season. You're just educating the elk. That elk's going to forget that encounter within a couple of days. Especially if you're doing a multitude of different sounds where they can't just lock in on one tone. The hoochie mama. That's one tone. It doesn't vary. If that's all you were doing, and that bull comes in and has an encounter with you, he's more apt to associate that exact tone with that encounter for a little bit longer. So, but where you are varying up your sounds and you're mixing up your tones, then you're going to be fine to go back in there in 3 days. And I've done it repeatedly. And in fact, the 6 point from a couple of years ago, that was a bull that actually called in 3 times during the course of the season. So definitely can do it. Now, the key thing on that is, though, you want to learn from each of those encounters. You want to know what worked, what didn't. But keep in mind, too, that the next time you encounter him, his mindset may be a little bit different. All right. Next up. Does other hunting pressure change your decisions? Yeah, it would. I'm pretty fortunate, where we go. There's not a ton of hunting pressure, and so don't have to run into a lot of people. What we've kind of learned in our area, that bench we really like hitting, we hit that early in the season. Because middle of the season on, it gets pretty popular. And so we focus our efforts on that bench early in the season and save those other areas for later in the season, because we know those other areas we're not going to run into people in. And so those elk aren't going to be pressured. They aren't going to be hassled at all. And so it kind of gives us an ace in the hole to where we can hunt our favorite place early before it gets too popular or it gets too much pressure. And then we go over to the other areas. Now, obviously, yes, hunting pressure is always going to weigh in on my decision, especially if I have multiple bulls bugling and I can hear other hunters bugling. I'm going to do a few different things. If I can get to one of the bulls that is not going to be pressured, maybe he's bugling behind me. There's a bull out in front and there's a hunter out in front. I'm going to focus on that bull behind because I know I'm not competing with anybody. Now, if there's only one bull bugling, I'm going to, again, my decision making on this is I'm going to sit there and take a look and go, okay, if this bull gets boogered, where's he going to go? Where's his escape routes? And then I'm going to go set up in his escape routes. So that way I'm kind of counting on the other person boogering that opportunity up and that bull hitting the escape route, and then there I am waiting for him to hit that route. So always trying to position myself for the best opportunity that I can. All right. Bivy hunting versus base camp. So, I used to be a big bivy hunt guy. Used to go back in 7-8 miles. That was up until about 10 years ago. So maybe a little more than that. Used to love it. Still go back into that area once in a while. But now mostly I like base camp because base camp gives me the ability to branch out a lot farther. When you're bivy hunting, you're kind of isolated into that area where you're at. But the advantage of base camping is you can get in the truck and you can go night bugle. You can go look for elk. You can find bugles. You can go chase them. You can go find where the elk are. And that's one thing that we do quite a bit now is, get up either really early in the morning and go hunt bugles, or, we go at night and hunt bugles for the next day. But the base camp gives that ability that you're a lot more mobile. Because if you're in that area, you're working that area and there's no elk there, you can pack up camp and move. Go 50 miles. And we've had to do that before. We've had to tear down camp and move before because hunting pressure. It was just crazy a few years ago. So right now I prefer bivy hunting, base camp over bivy hunting. But still once in a while, especially Labor Day weekend, when we know there's a lot of people out camping and riding ATVs and stuff, we may go in and bivy it for a couple of days just because we know there's areas that we can go in and we can get away from that Memorial Weekend traffic. And I think it just, it's a good mix. So bivy hunting for a couple of days, not bad, especially if you have an area that takes you quite a bit of time to get in there. Go ahead and bivy hunt, especially if the elk are active. Stay in there a couple of days. Or if you go in there and a lot of elk activity and then you come back out, then put your stuff together and then go in there and spend a couple of days. That's another great approach. But all in all, for me, it's base camping. So that's really what I prefer. So, all right, guys, I'm not seeing any questions or any input tonight. So this one may be a quick one. So let me check the phone and see if anybody is actually commenting on the Patreon page. And nope, we don't have anything. So that was the topics and the questions I wanted to cover tonight. So we're going to wrap this one up. So, all right, guys. Hey, thanks for tuning in. As always, keep calling, keep practicing. More importantly, though, have fun. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.